So, A Girl Made of Air is this really lovely, magical book, and I saw that you had previously worked in theatre. So, is there a connection there? Was the theatre sort of a genesis for the idea of where the book for A Girl Made of Air came from, something set in a circus?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a connection. So I worked in physical theatre, and I worked mainly in France, in Paris. And in continental Europe, the idea of theatre is much more open than, say, here in the UK, where I am, which is a very traditional idea of theatre. So I worked a lot in under canvas, for example, and I worked a lot with circus performers. So the idea of spectacle had that circus sort of aesthetic to it. So that was definitely, yeah, roots there.
Where did the rest of the idea come from for to write about someone who's the greatest funambulist in the world?
Well, so the word, strangely enough, the whole novel came from my slight obsession with the French word funambule, which obviously is funambulist in French. And it's because when I lived in Paris, I lived by a tiny theatre called Le Funambule, and I just thought it was a beautiful word. So that tied in with my background in sort of physical theatre. For so many years, I was ruminating on this idea, and so the word created sort of an image of the aesthetic of the person on the tightrope, which brings up all the metaphors of, you know, balancing life and all that. And it just stuck with me. It just stuck with me for so long. And so when I decided to write a novel, it was there. It was right there in my head.
What is so intriguing about the circus and the circus environment?
So it's the place for the outsider. So many of us, and I think specifically creative people, you know, people who go into the arts, whether that be visual arts or literature or whatever, have always seen themselves as the outsider, and they're always looking for that place where they belong, a place where all the outsiders can congregate. So the circus is the place where you run away to if you're the outsider. So you've got this sort of disparate group of people trying to find a home, and it's a nomadic world where you're trying desperately to find your place, and yet it's a world full of great artistry. So these outsiders are also great artists. So yeah, it's the ultimate universe of the outsider.
The protagonist is someone who's never named beyond being called the greatest funambulist who ever lived, and sometimes moused by one of the other characters. Tell me a bit more about her and how you went about creating her.
So I kind of wrote myself into her. Her voice just kept sort of taking over. So she kind of developed throughout the book. And I think that's a good thing, because it's sort of a lifespan. She starts off very young, she becomes a teenager, she becomes a woman. So the development in my actual writing of the book was also the development of her growing up. So I had, right at the beginning, no specific ideas of who she was, and she literally developed as I was writing the book, you know, with the ideas of different chapters. It sounds almost like an alchemy when you talk about writing like that, and it sounds like almost a magical thing, but I really don't know any other way of explaining it.